So for those of you who are just joining us, good afternoon and welcome once again to the Youth Resilience in the Digital Age Conference, a joint initiative of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada and the Canadian Teachers Federation, made possible thanks to funding from Employment and Social Development Canada. Once again, my name is Dan Martin and I'm the Director of the International and Social Justice Program at the Canadian Teachers Federation. I would like to thank you for joining us for the closing remarks of this week's online conference. In a moment, you'll hear comments from the heads of the two co-hosting organizations for this conference. I will introduce Shelley Morris, who's the president of the Canadian Teachers Federation, and then my colleague Dina will introduce Owen Charters, who's the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada. Many of you have attended webinars through this week as parents, as educators, as staff members of youth serving organizations, or as others who are recognizing the importance of online safety and security for children and youth. You've participated with and you've learned from Michelle Hagerman through the opening keynote and Bianca West through her closing keynote, and you've attended sessions facilitated by 10 different Canadian organizations. I'm sure that you, like me, have been challenged and informed and inspired by all these speakers and these organizations. So many thanks to them, one and all. We're deeply grateful to you as participants because we know that these days over the past many weeks and many months have been very busy and very unusual. So we're grateful for your time and for your participation and for your commitment to children and youth. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the president of the Canadian Teachers Federation, Shelley Morris. In addition to her role as president, Shelley's also the chair of the Canadian Teachers Federation Advisory Committee on Diversity and Human Rights, and is also the chair of the Board of Trustees who oversee the International and Social Justice Program of the Canadian Teachers Federation. She is a proud Maritimer, and she is the former president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union. She is and always will be a teacher at heart. She worked as a classroom teacher at an elementary school in Nova Scotia while serving as a vice president of the CTF-FCA, and in fact, immediately before becoming president of the organization. Shelley is also a tireless advocate for gender equality in Canada and around the world, and she's strongly committed to keeping places of teaching and learning safe and positive, whether those places are physical or virtual. As co-host of this week's Youth Resilience in the Digital Age Conference, the Canadian Teachers Federation is delighted that Shelley has joined us this afternoon to give closing remarks. Thanks very much, Shelley, to you for your support and your leadership. Over to you. Shelley, we're having some technical difficulties here. The audio's not coming through. Give it another try there. I'll look to my colleagues. Can anybody hear Shelley, or is it no? No. All right, we'll wait just a moment. Shelley has logged off and we'll log back on again to see if the audio is working now.
Okay, Dan, does that work?
There we go, loud and clear. Thanks, Shelley. Over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dan, for the introduction, your kind words, and for your leadership. Merci. This has been a school year like none other. The calendar may say February, but for many of you, it already feels like June. Teaching, working, and learning over the past few months have been exhausting. We've done a number of surveys in recent months, and the results prove what we already knew. This pandemic is having a significantly negative impact on the mental health and well-being of many. And sadly, it makes sense. Isolation, lack of structure, reduced access to devices and learning tools, connectivity issues, constant changes to practice, limited interaction with peers, never mind the very real and potentially deadly health concerns for oneself, for students, families, and the school community. These are the things that keep teachers and education workers up at night. And on that note, I really want to drive home the point that distance learning was meant to be a short-term emergency response, not our long-term new normal. Parents of children across the country doing distance learning have really been struggling too. Online learning highlights the overwhelming equity gaps that exist between Canadian families. Not every home in Canada has access to internet, and many parents simply can't afford the electronic devices needed for their children to attend virtual classes. And many families are faced with other struggles. In many cases, juggling full-time work from home, providing childcare, providing support for virtual learning, along with tech support. And our members at the CTF-FCA, the teachers and education workers, have been dealing with another reality altogether. Many have had to teach a class of 20 to 40 students from their kitchen table. Then, between lessons, quickly popping into another room or sliding down to the other end of the kitchen table to help their own children with their schoolwork. This is not sustainable for the parents, for the students, for the teachers, or for the economy writ large. We've been saying from the outset that in-person learning in a classroom is far superior to distance learning. It gives our children peer socialization, structure, and immediate access to trained educators. And let's not forget that many students depend on school-provided food, computer access, internet, and emotional support from their school communities. Therefore, needless to say, it's a top priority for us to see all schools reopen or remain open safely and sustainably. But having said all that, it is necessary still for us as a country to establish a cohesive and strategic national approach to support online safety for children and youth. If provincial and territorial governments continue to mismanage health and safety standards in schools, and our students are forced to either continue or return to virtual learning for the next couple of months, we need to equip children and youth with the digital skills necessary to effectively assess and respond to risks encountered online. We need to go beyond the traditional methods of online safety. We need to ensure that children and youth feel more engaged and better supported. Ensure that they feel like they can ask questions and independently access resources in a number of dynamic ways. One was shown to us today. So here are some of the ideas discussed during the conference that I want to highlight. Let's start with connection. And I'm not talking about internet connection. I mean real and genuine connection. It's easy for all of us to hide behind our screen, send emails, turn off our camera during meetings, or send messages on social media. But in this time of pandemic, now more than ever, we need human connection. We need to build a community of support. And while right now that support cannot be in person, a number of speakers this week have outlined ways in which we can create safe, engaging, and fun virtual spaces to connect with each other. And on that note, we'll be much better at dealing with the challenges of a digital world if we are more inclusive in our approach. The beauty of being online is the opportunity to interact with people of many diverse backgrounds. Unfortunately, online discrimination and cyberbullying based on sex, gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religion, age, mental and physical disability is far too common. And as we work to develop a national approach to online child and youth safety, I want to remind everyone that we need to continuously evaluate how diverse groups of people may experience programs and initiatives differently. One way to do this, of course, is to listen to the valuable insights our youth have to offer. Doing so will build their sense of agency, increase their digital resilience, and empower them to effectively take action to mitigate risk. More importantly, it will make for better online frameworks that help keep our children and youth safe. Now, before turning it over to Owen, I'd like to say thank you to everyone tuning in. Thank you to all the keynote speakers and panelists, not only for your engagement, but also for trying to help us solve some complex issues. Thank you to everyone involved in organizing this conference as well. It's no small feat to pull together something like this, especially in a virtual setting. Well done. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you very, very much, Shelley. And while you certainly highlighted a number of the challenges that we continue to face, I really, really enjoyed the comment about let's start with connections. Let's start with real human connections, because now more than ever is when we need them. And you're absolutely right. I also took heart with your comment about us needing to listen and receiving those valuable inputs that are coming from children and youth themselves. So many, many thanks to you, Shelley. And Dina, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelley, and thank you, Dan. My name is Dina Ropp-Rees, and I'm a club support manager with Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada. And it's been a great honor to be a part of the planning committee for this conference, along with the Canadian Teachers Federation. It's now my pleasure to introduce Owen Charters. Owen is the CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada and volunteered in a club as a teenager. He has remained a passionate leader of nonprofits and a champion for children and youth over much of his career. Serving on boards and in advisory roles for organizations, including Imagine Canada, Common Good, Western University, and the National Alliance for Children and Youth, he advocates for a strong collective voice for the nonprofit sector and teaches the next generation of nonprofit leaders at the Schulich School of Business at York University. In his CEO role, he no longer gets to work with kids on a daily basis, but he cherishes the visits to clubs across the country and being in the middle of the activities where you can sometimes hear his camp counselor voice in action. Owen, we're so pleased to have you here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Dina, and hopefully I don't have to use my camp counselor voice through Zoom, but it's a great pleasure to be here along with Shelley, along with you, Dina, and Dan to wrap up this great week of learning. It's been very impressive, and it's very impressive given the fact that all of this has to be done digitally, given that it's literally the topic of this week and the challenges that digital brings to us. Just 11 months ago, all of us thought the world was collapsing when all of a sudden we had to leave offices, leave schools, shut clubs, and have kids and youth go home, often in situations which we didn't know what it would look like. We didn't know what kind of access they might have. We didn't know what challenges they might be facing. And I think for anyone who works with children and youth, that was devastating. And it was devastating in so many ways because you didn't have, and I think, Shelley, you nailed it with about the words of connection. We lost connection. And I think there was great panic and there was great concern because we realized those situations weren't always great for the children and youth that we work with. But secondly, that they didn't have access to the tools, the digital tools, the digital knowledge that was necessary to connect. And then we also realized the second problem, and that was, how do they do it safely? How were we going to create a safe world for them to connect to these tools, given the fact that we'd spent so much time prior to this talking about the dangers of a digital space, a space that we were now forced to use when we had to connect with others. And I really think that this conference has been vital in providing the necessary knowledge, the sharing, and what's really incredible, and the team has really brought this out and put a spotlight on it, the fact that each of the organizations that participated, many had specific areas of knowledge and specific areas of expertise prior to the pandemic. That has only grown our capacity to understand how we share that knowledge, what we need to do to keep kids safe online, to give them the access that they need, and to make sure that it was really empowering them. So it was phenomenal that in 11 months later, we can be sitting around in Zoom, of course, having these conversations, teaching each other, learning from each other about the tools that now are the way we work and connect with the children, the youth, and the families that we're supposed to connect with in person on a routine basis. So there's something quite powerful about all of that. I think also we know that this conference was created to promote and inspire resiliency in the online space. And you may have participated in sessions where there were resources and facts were shared about exploitation, cyberbullying, or how to detect fake news. The message throughout was consistent. We need to help children and youth develop digital resiliency skills in order to help them stay safe. And we can't forget at all how integral inclusion and a sense of belonging are in the virtual environment, and how critical this is to children and youth's well-being. We know that from the times when we're not online, and now we have to use online to make that still the case. Ensuring that online spaces include all children and youth, regardless of ability, regardless of culture, regardless of race, it's absolutely imperative in terms of creating a community in a time when we're being isolated from many of the communities that we normally belong to. So I want to end by talking about a bit of gratitude and a bit of thanks for all the coalition members for bringing online safety and resilience issues to the forefront, giving educators, youth serving organizations, and parents tools and resources that really are designed to help keep children and youth safe in the virtual space. We had many partners from Respect Incorporated, Jay's Care Foundation, Media Smarts, Taking It Global, Canadian Centre for Child Protection, Variety Ontario, Inspire, Actua, Kids Boost Immunity, Kids Help Phone, the Canadian Mentoring Partnership, and of course, great support from the Government of Canada and a great partner between us at Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada and the Canadian Teachers Federation. I want to thank the teams too in both organizations, because it's an incredible amount of work to pull this together. We've often pulled together events in real conference space. That's a lot of work, and I think to use the overused word of the last 11 months, everyone had to pivot to figure out how to do this in a virtual space, just as kids have had to pivot to figure out how to navigate this space safely. And I think, are better equipped than ever to be able to help them. So a huge thanks to the team, to Dina and Dan, and the many others. There were many on both teams who got a chance to be behind the scenes making this happen, to make it a success, and to make it a fantastic week for everyone involved. So a huge shout out, a huge thank you to all of you. I know it's a lot of great passion and dedication that you bring to this. Great curiosity for those who have listened to our panelists and listened to our presenters. And we hope that it's been extraordinarily valuable. It's been incredibly valuable just for our organization, as we've really had to figure out how to change something that we talk about, a safe place, and Boys and Girls Clubs have a motto of a safe place to be. And we always meant that in a physical sense. And it has been through this conference that we've helped figure out the evolution to making that safe space also be an online one. So thank you, everyone. And it's been great to have you with us for this week. And I'll turn it back to you, Dina. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Owen. Dan, I will turn it back over to you to close our conference.
Thanks so much, Owen. And once again, thanks to you, Shelley. And of course, thanks to you, Dina. Thanks one and all for all of the presenters this week, and to every single parent, every single educator, every single staff member of a youth serving organization. We have learned tremendously. And I think that, as Owen said, we are more prepared now than ever in order to continue to support our children and youth, to keep them safe and to support them as they develop the skills to keep themselves safe. We've talked a lot over the last few days about agency and about responsibility for developing those skills. And I think that we have learned so tremendously much over these past 5 days. In closing, please and thank you. Don't forget that all of the resources that you saw throughout the week and many more will be available through the website, and all the recordings from the webinars that took place will also be available beginning on Tuesday. Please do check out the resources and the recordings that are there, because I feel that we are just at the beginning of the learning. There is so much more that we can be learning and can be doing with one another. So from the Canadian Teachers Federation, from the Boys and Girls Club of Canada, and with thanks to Employment and Social Development Canada, I wish all of you a very good afternoon. And for those of you who are in a province that celebrates Family Day, a beautiful long weekend. Thanks again, and take good care.